My beloved child, pause here, listen closely, because something subtle has already begun to move in your direction. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with precision. There are moments when the future does not arrive with noise, only with clarity, and this is one of those moments. What you are about to hear is not a headline or a rumor. It is a shift in understanding, and once it settles in, the way you see tomorrow will never return to what it was. You may think secrets are hidden in vaults or behind closed doors, but the most powerful ones are revealed in plain sight, disguised as casual statements, offhand remarks, or quiet patterns. Recently, a revelation surfaced, not as an announcement, but as a signal. A signal that suggests the next era will not belong to the loudest voices, but to the most prepared minds. Consider this carefully. What if progress is no longer about speed, but about alignment? What if the real advantage is not access to technology, but awareness of how it reshapes human choice? The secret points in this direction. It suggests that those who learn to think differently, who adapt before they are forced, will quietly step ahead while the world is still catching up. Stay with this thought for a moment. The future is not waiting to be discovered, it is waiting to be interpreted. The revelation hints that intelligence is no longer confined to machines or institutions. It is becoming collaborative, fluid, distributed, and the question is not whether this change will happen. It already has. The question is whether you recognize your place within it. Here is where the tension builds. Because with every advancement comes a responsibility, to choose intention over distraction, depth over noise. The secret implies that those who master focus will master opportunity. Those who understand systems will shape outcomes. This is not about predicting tomorrow, it is about positioning yourself so tomorrow recognizes you. Before you drift away, consider this quietly. What if this moment changes your entire path? Not by force, by choice. The next part will connect what you sense with what is unfolding, and the picture will become sharper than you expect. Wait, before you move on, notice how your attention feels right now. That alertness is not accidental. It's the signal that something is aligning. The revelation continues, and it becomes clearer. The next transformation will not reward those who chase everything. It will reward those who commit to one thing deeply. The insight suggests a future where leverage replaces labor, where understanding replaces effort, where clarity outperforms chaos. And here is the surprising part. This shift favors individuals more than institutions. It favors thinkers who can learn quickly, adapt calmly, and act deliberately. This is the quiet edge. You might wonder why this matters to you. Because the secret is not about technology alone, it is about mindset. It suggests that the most valuable skill ahead is the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn without fear. Those who cling to old identities will feel stuck. Those who remain curious will feel guided. There is a reason this message reaches you now. Not everyone is ready to hear it. Some will dismiss it as abstract. Others will sense its weight immediately. If you are still listening, you are already ahead of where you were moments ago. Stay a little longer, the turning point is closer than it appears. At this stage, it's worth sharing something quietly. If these ideas resonate, pass them forward in your own way. A thoughtful comment, a shared moment, or a simple follow can keep this conversation alive for others who are searching without knowing what for. Growth spreads best when it feels natural. Now listen carefully. The secret also implies that the future will amplify who you already are. It will reward integrity, patience, and long-term thinking. Shortcuts will feel tempting but hollow. Depth will feel demanding but fulfilling. And those who choose depth will find doors opening without force. You will understand everything at the end, but only if you allow this idea to settle. You are not late. You are not behind. You are arriving exactly when awareness becomes an advantage. Hold on, this is where the message completes itself. Not with a dramatic finish, but with a clear realization. The revelation ultimately points to a simple truth: the future is built by those who see it coming and prepare quietly. What changes everything is not one invention or one decision. It is a sequence of small, aligned choices made consistently. The secret reveals that momentum favors those who move with intention, not urgency. Those who build skills, not noise. Those who invest in understanding rather than appearances. Imagine looking back at this moment later, realizing it was the instant your perspective widened. The instant you stopped waiting for permission and started refining direction. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more precise in who you already are. Before you go, hear this line clearly. The world ahead will feel unfamiliar to many, but familiar to those who listened early. Awareness is the quiet advantage. Preparation is the unseen power. And clarity is the currency that never devalues. Stay with that. Let it guide how you think, learn, and choose. Because the secret was never meant to impress you. It was meant to position you. And now that you've heard it, the rest unfolds naturally, one intentional step at a time. Wait. Before you move, something just shifted. You can feel it, even if you can't name it yet. This is the point we were circling around, the unanswered question from before. If awareness is the advantage, if preparation is the quiet power, then what is the signal that tells you when to act? That mystery matters more than it seems, because many people understand ideas, but only a few recognize timing. And this is where the secret deepens. Here is the first reveal. The future does not announce itself when it arrives. It whispers beforehand. Patterns change. Conversations feel different. Certain ideas keep returning to your mind uninvited. That is not coincidence. That is alignment beginning to form. Pause on that. One sharp thought. One calm breath. The insight suggests that timing is sensed, not scheduled. Those who wait for certainty usually arrive late. Those who trust clarity arrive prepared. This moment may explain what you've been sensing lately, that subtle pressure to refine, to simplify, to focus. Now the second reveal. The coming shift will not reward those who react fastest, but those who reposition earliest. Quiet changes in how you learn, how you decide, how you allocate your attention. These are not small adjustments. They are future-facing moves. Stay with this, because the connection is forming. There is a reason distractions are increasing everywhere. Not as an accident, but as a filter. The world ahead favors depth so strongly that shallow focus simply falls behind on its own. That's not judgment. It's design. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Tension rises here, because this demands something from you. Not urgency. Intention. The hope comes immediately after. You don't need to change everything. Only one direction needs to become clearer. Another micro reveal now. The secret implies that the most valuable decisions ahead will feel strangely quiet. No applause. No instant feedback. Just an inner sense of, this matters. That is how long-term advantage begins, without noise. You'll understand at the end why that silence is important. If this message resonates, you know where to find the next one. Not because you were told to, but because clarity recognizes clarity. Now listen carefully. The revelation continues by pointing to a missing layer most people ignore. Systems evolve faster than identities. If you cling to an old self-image, progress feels threatening. If you update your identity, progress feels like permission. That is the turning point. This is where hope expands into vision. You are not being pushed out of place. You are being invited forward. The future is less about competition and more about coherence, being in the right rhythm at the right moment. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because there is one more layer still unseen. One truth that explains why this message reached you now, and not earlier, and not later. Before the next part, something must be revealed, and once it is, the path ahead will look very different. Stay with me, right here, because this is the moment the hidden layer begins to surface. Not loudly, not all at once, but clearly enough that you can feel it settling into place. You remember the question from before, the one about why this reached you now, and what signal tells you when to move. That question wasn't meant to be answered quickly. It was meant to prepare you. Here is the recall. We spoke about timing being sensed, not scheduled. About quiet decisions shaping loud outcomes. So what is the missing signal? What tells a person that preparation has turned into readiness? Here is the first reveal of this part. Readiness feels calm, not excited, not rushed, calm. When the right moment approaches, urgency fades and precision takes over. That's how you know alignment has arrived. Let that land. One short pause. One long breath. The insight continues. The future rewards those who reduce friction in their lives. Fewer distractions. Fewer scattered goals. Fewer borrowed opinions. The secret implies that subtraction, not addition, becomes the winning move. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that pull to simplify without knowing why. Now a turning point. Many people wait for confidence before they act. But confidence is usually the result of action, not the cause. The revelation suggests something different. Clarity comes first. When clarity arrives, confidence follows quietly. Notice how this shifts the tension. The pressure lifts. Hope takes its place. Another reveal unfolds here. The most valuable opportunities ahead will not look impressive at first glance. They will look ordinary, small, almost easy to ignore. That is why so few recognize them. But those who do, those who act without needing validation, compound advantage over time. You'll understand at the end why that matters more than talent or luck. Now the rhythm changes. One sharp truth. One calm realization. The secret also hints that the future is moving from consumption to creation. From passive attention to intentional contribution. Not everyone will notice this shift. But those who do will feel less anxious and more directed, even as the world feels noisier. This is where revelation deepens into mystery. Because here is the part rarely spoken aloud. When you align internally, external resistance decreases. Not instantly, gradually. Doors don't fly open, but they stop being locked. Conversations change tone. Ideas connect faster. Effort produces clearer results. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. You are not being asked to rush. You are being invited to recognize a threshold. A point where preparation has quietly done its work. A point where waiting longer adds no advantage. And yet, there is still one truth missing. It explains why some people sense the future early, while others only see it in hindsight. It explains why this message feels familiar, even if you've never heard it phrased this way before. Before the next part, something must be revealed, and once it is, the final pattern will emerge. You were meant to hear this section most of all, not because it is louder than the rest, but because it answers the question that has been quietly forming beneath everything we've said. You remember the mystery from before. Why some people sense the future early, while others only recognize it when it has already passed. That question has been waiting for this moment. Here is the recall. We spoke about readiness feeling calm, about clarity arriving before confidence, about subtle doors unlocking when alignment is real. So what separates those who sense the shift from those who miss it? Here is the first reveal. Pattern recognition is the real signal, not intelligence, not speed, the ability to notice what is repeating before it becomes obvious. The future always rehearses quietly before it performs publicly. Let that settle. One sharp sentence, one slow breath. The insight deepens. Those who notice patterns early are not guessing, they are listening. They pay attention to what keeps resurfacing in conversations, in technology, in human behavior. They notice where energy is flowing without being forced. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, why certain ideas have been circling your mind again and again. Now the tension rises slightly, because this awareness comes with responsibility. Once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you see it, waiting too long feels uncomfortable, not because of pressure, but because misalignment becomes obvious. Here comes hope. The revelation suggests that you don't need to predict the future to move correctly within it. You only need to move in harmony with what is already forming. That's why small, intentional steps taken early often outperform massive efforts taken late. Another micro reveal unfolds here. The most successful shifts happen when identity updates before environment does. When you begin thinking like the future version of yourself, your current circumstances start reorganizing around that perspective. Short pause, longer clarity. This is why some people appear lucky. Not because events favor them, but because they recognize the pattern early and adjusted internally first. Opportunity didn't knock louder for them. They simply heard it sooner. You'll understand at the end why this changes everything. Now the rhythm shifts again. One crisp truth. One calm expansion. The secret also implies that resistance is often a signal of outdated alignment. When something feels heavy, forced, or endlessly draining, it's not always a challenge to push through. Sometimes it's information. Information telling you a recalibration is needed. And here's the surprising part. When recalibration happens, effort doesn't disappear, but it becomes cleaner, more direct, less scattered. You stop chasing 10 directions and start moving powerfully in one. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because there is still one layer not yet spoken. One final distinction that explains why awareness alone is not enough, and why action, taken at the right moment, completes the equation. But there's one truth still missing, and before the next part, something must be revealed that changes how all of this fits together. Hold this moment, right here, because something just aligned beneath the surface. Not as an answer, but as a readiness to receive one. You remember the unresolved thread from before. Awareness alone is not enough. Action matters, but only when it arrives at the correct moment. So what completes the equation? Here is the recall. We spoke about patterns rehearsing quietly before they appear publicly, about identity updating before environment, about recalibration turning effort into direction. All of that was preparation for this layer. Here is the first reveal of this part. Action becomes powerful only after commitment becomes internal. Not commitment to a plan, but commitment to a direction. When the direction is clear, the exact steps reveal themselves without force. Let that breathe. One sharp pause. One steady calm. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that pull to decide something without yet knowing the full map. The secret suggests that waiting for perfect certainty is no longer the strategy. The future rewards movement guided by clarity, not by guarantees. Tension rises here, because this challenges old habits. But hope follows immediately. Another micro reveal. The right action often feels smaller than expected. Not dramatic, not heroic. Sometimes it's a conversation you've delayed. A skill you begin quietly. A boundary you finally set. These actions seem ordinary, but they change trajectory. Stay with this thought, because the next insight shifts everything again. The revelation implies that momentum is fragile at first, but unstoppable once established. The earliest moves matter more than the loudest ones later. That's why starting before you feel ready is often the moment readiness actually forms. You'll understand at the end why this principle separates observers from builders. Now the rhythm changes. One concise truth. One expansive meaning. The future does not respond to wishful thinking. It responds to aligned behavior. When what you think, say, and do begin to point in the same direction, resistance thins. Opportunities don't chase you, but they stop avoiding you. Another reveal emerges here. Many people misinterpret discomfort as a warning, but often, discomfort is simply the signal of growth catching up to identity. When action stretches you slightly, without draining you completely, that's alignment speaking. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because here is where revelation turns back into mystery. Even with clarity, even with aligned action, something else decides the speed of results. Something subtle, something almost invisible. It's not effort. It's not talent. It's not timing alone. There is one more factor still unspoken. One truth that determines whether progress compounds, or stalls quietly. Before the next part, something must be revealed, and once it is, you'll see why some paths accelerate while others slowly fade, even when the starting point looks the same. Stay right here, because what's about to surface has been influencing everything quietly. You can sense it now. This is the unresolved factor from before, the invisible force that decides whether momentum accelerates or slowly dissolves. We left off asking what determines the speed of results, even when clarity and action are present. Here is the recall. Direction was chosen, action aligned, patterns recognized. And yet, outcomes still vary. Some paths ignite, others stall. Why? Here is the first reveal. Energy follows consistency, not intensity, not bursts of motivation. Consistency. The future responds most strongly to signals that repeat without drama. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that urge to show up steadily, even when no one is watching. Let that register. One precise sentence, one calm breath. The insight deepens. When a direction is revisited daily, even in small ways, reality begins to reorganize around it. Systems notice repetition. Opportunities lean toward reliability. This is not visible at first. That's why most people stop too early. Now the tension sharpens. Because this challenges the myth of overnight change. But hope arrives immediately after. Another reveal. Consistency creates trust, not just externally, but internally. When you keep small promises to yourself, your decisions gain weight. Doubt weakens. Focus strengthens. And suddenly, aligned action produces cleaner results. You'll understand at the end why this internal trust changes everything. The rhythm shifts again. Short truth, longer meaning. The secret also implies that the future favors those who compound quietly. Small improvements layered over time outperform dramatic reinventions. This is why the most powerful shifts often look boring in the beginning, and undeniable later. Here is where the visionary layer emerges. Elon Musk has often pointed toward systems thinking, how outcomes are rarely the result of one decision, but of many aligned inputs working together. The revelation echoes this idea. When thinking, behavior, and consistency align, progress becomes inevitable. Pause there. Another reveal unfolds. Friction is feedback, not a stop sign. When resistance appears, it often signals where refinement is needed, not retreat. Adjust the method, not the mission. That distinction keeps momentum alive. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because here is the subtle truth most overlook. Consistency is not about discipline alone. It's about identity reinforcement. Every repeated action votes for the person you are becoming. Over time, identity stabilizes, and reality responds to what is stable. Now mystery returns. Even with consistency, even with alignment, even with clarity, there is one more layer that determines when the visible shift appears. A timing mechanism few understand, but everyone experiences. It has nothing to do with effort, nothing to do with desire. But there's one truth still missing, and before the next part, something must be revealed that explains why breakthroughs arrive suddenly, after long periods of quiet progress. Wait, before you continue, notice how still everything feels for a second. That stillness is not empty, it's charged. This is the point we paused at, the question about when visible change finally appears after long, quiet consistency. That mystery wasn't about effort or desire. It was about something more precise. Here is the recall. Direction was chosen. Action aligned. Consistency sustained. Identity reinforced. And yet, results sometimes seem delayed. So what decides the moment the shift becomes undeniable? Here is the first reveal. Systems move in thresholds, not in straight lines. Progress accumulates invisibly until it crosses a line you can't see in advance. That's why breakthroughs feel sudden, even though they were prepared slowly. Let that land. One sharp insight. One calm realization. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that feeling of being close without knowing how close. When you are near a threshold, effort feels the same, but outcomes begin to feel lighter. Subtle confirmations appear. Small wins stack faster. That's not imagination. That's proximity. Tension builds here, because thresholds test patience. But hope arrives immediately after. Another micro reveal. Thresholds are crossed not by doing more, but by doing right. One adjustment. One refined choice. One decision made with clarity instead of habit. That single correction can unlock everything that consistency has been preparing. Stay with this, because the pattern is revealing itself. The future operates less like a race and more like a calibration. When enough variables align, momentum releases. That's why the final push often feels easier than the beginning. Resistance drops, not because the world changed, but because alignment completed itself. You'll understand at the end why this reframes waiting entirely. Now the rhythm shifts. Short truth, longer meaning. The secret implies that most people quit just before the threshold. Not because they failed, but because they misread silence as stagnation. In reality, silence is often compression. Pressure building. Structure forming. Another micro reveal unfolds. When compression is complete, expansion happens quickly. That's why progress can feel invisible for months, and obvious in days. The timing is not random, it's structural. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because here is the visionary layer. Once a threshold is crossed, identity locks in. What once required effort becomes natural. Decisions simplify. Momentum sustains itself. You stop forcing progress and start directing it. This is where mystery returns. Even knowing about thresholds, even recognizing proximity, there is still one element that determines which threshold you approach, and whether you recognize it in time. It's subtle, often overlooked, but once named, it changes how you interpret every delay and every sign. But there's one truth still missing, and before the next part, something must be revealed that explains why awareness itself can accelerate, or slow, everything that follows. Listen, right now, because this is the moment the unseen lever comes into view. You felt it approaching in the last part: thresholds, compression, the sudden release after long quiet effort. But one question remained unanswered. What determines which threshold you approach, and why awareness itself can either speed everything up or slow it down? Here is the recall. Consistency built trust. Alignment reduced resistance. Patterns revealed direction. And still, timing seemed elusive. That is where this layer begins. Here is the first reveal. Attention sets trajectory. Not intention alone, attention. What you repeatedly notice becomes what you move toward. The future does not respond to what you want once, it responds to what you attend to daily. Let that settle. One precise truth. One calm expansion. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that subtle need to curate inputs, conversations, environments. Because attention is not passive, it is active guidance. Wherever it rests, momentum follows. Tension rises here, because attention feels small and ordinary. But hope follows immediately. Another micro reveal. Attention doesn't just choose direction, it sharpens thresholds. When your focus is scattered, thresholds blur. Progress feels slow because signals are noisy. When focus narrows, thresholds become visible, and crossing them requires less force. Stay with this. The connection is tightening. The secret implies that awareness accelerates when it is selective. Not everything deserves equal weight. Not every signal is meaningful. Those who move early learn to filter. They choose fewer inputs and extract deeper insight. That's how clarity compounds. You'll understand at the end why this is the hidden accelerator. Now the rhythm shifts. One crisp insight. One steady realization. When attention aligns with identity, action becomes obvious. You stop debating. You stop second-guessing. Decisions feel clean, not dramatic. That cleanliness is not emptiness, it's precision. Another micro reveal unfolds. Precision shortens feedback loops. Results appear sooner not because the work changed, but because errors are corrected earlier. Small adjustments made with clear attention prevent long delays later. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because here is the visionary layer. The future increasingly rewards signal over noise, depth over volume, meaning over motion. Those who cultivate attentive awareness move through complexity with less friction, even as systems grow more intricate. This is why some people seem to arrive at the right time again and again. They are not lucky. They are attentive. They notice inflection points early because their focus is trained to detect them. Hope expands here. You don't need more hours. You need clearer attention within the hours you already have. Now mystery returns. Even with attention aligned, thresholds recognized, and action precise, there is still one truth not yet spoken. One element that decides whether awareness becomes wisdom, or remains information. It is subtle. It is internal. And once revealed, it changes how you relate to every signal you receive. But there's one truth still missing, and before the next part, something must be revealed that transforms attention itself into direction you can trust. Pause for a breath. This is the quiet turn you were being led toward. Not the kind you rush through, but the kind you recognize after everything suddenly feels more coherent. You remember the unresolved point from before. Attention can accelerate everything, but only when it becomes something deeper. So what transforms attention into direction you can actually trust? Here is the recall. We moved through thresholds. We uncovered patterns. We refined focus. And yet, awareness alone still isn't wisdom. Information can guide, or it can overwhelm. The difference is subtle, but decisive. Here is the first reveal. Integration is the missing element. Not just noticing signals, but letting them settle into understanding. When insight connects with experience, it becomes guidance. When it doesn't, it stays noise. Let that rest for a moment. One sharp truth. One calm expansion. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that need to slow your intake while deepening your insight. The future does not reward those who consume the most ideas. It rewards those who synthesize them into clear action. Tension appears here, because synthesis takes patience. But hope follows immediately. Another micro reveal. Wisdom forms when attention pauses long enough to ask one question: what does this change in me? Not what does this mean for everyone else, but for you. That question turns awareness inward, where direction becomes personal and precise. Stay with this thought. It's opening something important. The revelation suggests that clarity is not found by adding more inputs, but by creating space between them. In that space, patterns connect, priorities rearrange, decisions simplify. That's when attention stops pulling you in many directions and starts pointing you forward. You'll understand at the end why this inner quiet is not passive, it's powerful. Now the rhythm shifts again. Short insight, longer meaning. When understanding integrates, action feels lighter. You don't push yourself forward, you're drawn. Resistance fades not because obstacles vanish, but because your direction becomes non-negotiable. You stop arguing with yourself. Another micro reveal unfolds here. This is why some people move with unusual calm even during change. They are not certain about outcomes, but they are certain about alignment. That certainty stabilizes momentum. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because here is the visionary layer. As systems grow more complex, integrated thinkers gain disproportionate advantage. They see fewer signals, but understand them more deeply. They move less, but with greater effect. This is the future, facing skill few talk about openly. And now, mystery returns once more. Even with integration, even with clarity, even with aligned direction, there is still one truth unspoken. One final distinction that determines whether wisdom becomes impact, or remains internal insight alone. It has nothing to do with intelligence, nothing to do with preparation. But there's one truth still missing, and before the next part, something must be revealed that shows how inner clarity becomes outward momentum that others can feel, even without explanation. Hold on, right here, because this is where inner clarity begins to move outward. You can feel the shift if you're paying attention. This is the unresolved question from before. How does wisdom stop being internal and start shaping the world around you, without force, without explanation? Here is the recall. Awareness became attention. Attention became integration. Integration became clarity. And still, something was missing, the bridge between knowing and impact. Here is the first reveal. Coherence is that bridge. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions align, people feel it before they understand it. Coherence communicates without words. It's the signal others respond to instinctively. Let that settle. One concise truth. One calm expansion. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that strange effect where things begin to cooperate without being pushed. Conversations flow more easily. Decisions meet less resistance. Not because you changed the world, but because you stopped contradicting yourself internally. Tension rises here, because coherence sounds abstract. Then hope arrives. Another micro reveal. Coherence simplifies complexity. When inner conflict dissolves, choices narrow naturally. You stop weighing every option and start recognizing the right one. That recognition saves time, energy, and momentum. Stay with this thought. The connection is strengthening. The revelation suggests that impact is not produced by intensity, but by alignment sustained over time. When coherence stabilizes, action gains credibility. Others trust it. Systems respond to it. Even uncertainty bends toward it. You'll understand at the end why this quiet credibility moves faster than persuasion ever could. Now the rhythm shifts again. Short insight, longer meaning. This is why some ideas spread without being marketed. Some leaders influence without insisting. Some builders attract support without asking. Their coherence carries a signal that others recognize as stable. Another micro reveal unfolds here. Stability is magnetic in uncertain times. When many feel scattered, coherence stands out. Not loudly, clearly. That clarity invites collaboration without demand. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because here is the visionary layer. As the future accelerates, coherence becomes a form of currency. Not status. Not visibility. Reliability of direction. Those who embody it become reference points others orient around. This is not about being followed. It's about being trusted. And now, mystery returns, because even coherence has a final test. Even with inner alignment. Even with outward impact. There is one more truth that determines whether coherence compounds into legacy, or fades once conditions change. It is subtle. It is deeply human. And it decides whether alignment remains personal, or becomes generational. But there's one truth still missing, and before the next part, something must be revealed that explains how aligned direction transforms into something that lasts beyond momentum itself. Stay still for a moment, because this is where everything you felt begins to take on weight. Not pressure, gravity. This is the unanswered edge from before, how alignment becomes something that lasts, not just something that works for a while. We were moving toward legacy without naming it. Now the shape becomes clearer. Here is the recall. Coherence created trust. Trust created impact. Impact began to ripple outward. But ripples fade unless something anchors them. So what turns aligned momentum into something that endures? Here is the first reveal. Transmission is the key. Not instruction. Not control. Transmission. What you embody teaches more than what you explain. When alignment becomes visible through behavior, it transfers naturally to others. Let that settle. One firm truth. One calm unfolding. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that desire to act in ways that feel exemplary rather than impressive. Because the future is not shaped by what is said once, but by what is demonstrated consistently. Tension appears here, because transmission feels slower than persuasion. Then hope arrives. Another micro reveal. Transmission scales quietly. When people observe coherence in action, they adapt it to their own context. No force required. No agreement needed. Alignment spreads through example, not argument. Stay with this. The pattern is completing itself. The revelation suggests that lasting influence is created when values are practiced, not promoted. When choices align so cleanly that others reference them instinctively. This is how direction outlives circumstances. You'll understand at the end why this kind of influence resists erosion. Now the rhythm shifts. Short insight, deeper meaning. Legacy does not begin at the end of a journey. It begins the moment your alignment becomes reliable enough for others to depend on. When people can predict your direction, not because you announced it, but because you live it. Another micro reveal unfolds here. Reliability compounds. When alignment holds under pressure, it becomes a signal of stability. In uncertain systems, stability attracts responsibility. Responsibility creates continuity. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Because here is the visionary layer. The future will remember fewer names, but it will retain more patterns, ways of thinking, ways of building, ways of deciding. Those patterns persist long after individual moments fade. This is where mystery returns. Even transmission has a final requirement, one inner quality that determines whether what you pass on remains intact, or becomes distorted over time. Without it, coherence weakens as it spreads. With it, coherence strengthens. It's not control. It's not perfection. It's something quieter, more resilient. But there's one truth still missing, and before the next part, something must be revealed that shows how alignment protects itself as it moves forward, unchanged in essence, even as it grows beyond you. Stay with this breath, because what's being revealed now is quieter than everything before, yet stronger than all of it combined. You've reached the final edge of the question we've been circling. We spoke about transmission, about legacy, about alignment moving beyond the individual. But one thing remained unresolved. What protects alignment as it spreads, so it doesn't lose its essence? Here is the recall. Coherence created trust. Trust allowed transmission. Transmission shaped continuity. And still, something was needed to keep it intact over time. Here is the first reveal. Integrity is the anchor. Not moral perfection, structural integrity. The kind that holds under pressure because it was built honestly from the start. When actions match principles even when it's inconvenient, alignment stabilizes itself. Let that settle. One steady truth. One calm unfolding. This moment may explain what you've been sensing, that pull to simplify your values, to live fewer contradictions. Because integrity is not restrictive. It's efficient. It removes internal drag. Tension rises briefly here, because integrity sounds demanding. Then hope arrives. Another micro reveal. Integrity reduces the need for correction later. When decisions are made cleanly, fewer repairs are required. Momentum doesn't fracture. Direction doesn't drift. Progress becomes sustainable. Stay with this connection. The revelation suggests that systems, human or technological, only scale safely when their core remains intact. When shortcuts are taken early, distortion appears later. When foundations are honest, growth remains stable even as complexity increases. You'll understand at the end why this principle outlasts any trend. Now the rhythm shifts. Short insight, deeper meaning. This is why some visions endure long after their creators step back. Not because they were powerful, but because they were internally consistent. Integrity preserved the signal as it moved through time and people. Another micro reveal unfolds. Integrity is felt, not enforced. Others recognize it instinctively. It creates trust without explanation. It invites continuation without control. In the next few seconds, everything connects. Because here is the final visionary layer. The future will belong to those whose alignment does not fracture under scale. Those who can grow without becoming something else. Those whose direction remains recognizable, even as reach expands. This is not about fame, not about dominance. It's about continuity of essence. And now, the mystery returns one last time. Even with integrity, even with alignment, even with legacy forming, there is still one choice that must be renewed again and again. Not once, not dramatically, quietly, daily. That choice determines whether everything you've heard becomes lived truth, or remains a beautiful idea. Before anything else unfolds, something must still be chosen.